It's strange how society celebrates strong women until that strength starts to make them uncomfortable. They cheer for you when you rise, but the moment you stand too tall, they whisper, "When will she marry?" And for many women, that's where the battle begins. Not against failure, but against loneliness, public perception, and opinion. Evan Okoro fought the battle in public, a woman who turned pain into purpose, and purpose into popularity. But beneath the laughter, the confidence, and the content, there was something else, a quiet, aching need to be seen, not as strong, but as chosen. This might be a long video, a really long video, but stay with me. Let's dissect the pick-me syndrome through the lens of Evan Okoro's story, a woman who rose from the ashes to become something, but allowed herself to crumble under the weight of pick-me syndrome. Born and raised in Imo State, in the heart of southeastern Nigeria, Evan Okoro grew up in a world that didn't promise her much. Her childhood was far from easy, marked by hardship, uncertainty, and the kind of quiet struggles that shape a person before they even understand what survival means. By her teenage years, life had already thrown her one of its hardest tests. At just 16, Evan became a mother. For many, that would have been the end of their dreams, but for her, it was the beginning of a different kind of fight. Barely 2 weeks after giving birth, when most girls her age were still learning how to live, Evan was already learning how to survive. She started roasting beans and plantain by the roadside at Relief Market in Onitsha, not because she wanted to, but because she had no other choice. It was there, under the harsh sun and the noise of passing buses, that her story truly began. Every day was a battle between exhaustion and hope, but beneath the soot and sweat of fire lay a stubborn refusal to stay small. She wanted more than pity. She wanted purpose, and somehow, even while standing by that roadside, she started to dream again. That dream would later push her to try everything she could, from small trading to acting, from singing to content creation. She was determined to make something out of herself. Even though each attempt came with failure, each failure taught her something new about resilience. For Evans, it wasn't an overnight success. It was a slow burn. Years of hustling, years of believing, years of learning how to build herself without any blueprint. By the time social media came along, Evan had already become the kind of woman who knew how to create her own path. Platforms like Facebook and YouTube would later become her stage, the space where she finally found her voice and audience. But before the lights, before the laughter, before the followers, there was a teenage girl at Relief Market, roasting beans and plantain with one hand and cradling her baby with the other. That was the foundation of the woman the world would later come to know. Strong, outspoken, independent, and unapologetically self-made. But survival wasn't the only thing she wanted. Beneath the street grit, there was also ambition, a deep craving for expression. Acting became her escape, her little rebellion against the life she was born into. Her first steps into Nollywood were small, uncertain, and often overlooked. Like many upcoming actresses, she juggled movie sets with side hustles, hoping one role would change everything. That chance came when she played the role of Dr. Maria, a character that would later become her signature identity. The name Dr. Maria stuck with her, and for the first time, people began to remember her face and her voice. But even then, fame didn't come easy. The roles were inconsistent, the pay was barely enough to sustain her, and the promises of the industry often led nowhere. At one point, in a desperate attempt to stay visible, she turned to gospel music, not because she suddenly found religion, but because she found an opportunity. In one of her most honest admissions, Evans once said she only went into Christian music because she thought it would open doors. If you remember, there was an era when a lot of Nollywood actors and actresses went into singing, some gospel, some secular, whatever the case, Evan was just hustling. She sang because she thought, that was what people wanted to hear. Even if her heart wasn't fully into it, she was not a Christian by her own admission. But she wanted just to make money. In a world that's quick to judge, that honesty later became another reason for criticism. People accused her of being worldly or insincere, without realizing she was simply doing what she had always done before: hustle and survive. Eventually, her persistence started to pay off through social media, particularly Facebook and YouTube. Evan built a loyal audience that loved her raw, unfiltered personality. She wasn't the glamorous actress pretending to have it all. She was the relatable woman who had fought for every inch of her success. And when she finally began to earn, she didn't start with herself. Instead, she started with her parents, the people who stood by her when all she had were just her dreams. Evan built her father a house, and then her mother, once a petty trader pushing goods in a wheelbarrow, was the second person to taste the reward of Evan's success. Evan also built her mother a house. It wasn't about showing off, it was gratitude, love, and maybe a quiet message to herself that she had finally made it out. By this time, she had proven herself as more than an actress or entertainer. She was a fighter, a provider, and a symbol of possibility for many young women who watched her rise online. But success, especially for a woman, comes with a new kind of loneliness, the kind that whispers, "You've achieved everything except being chosen." For a woman like Evan Okoro, success should have been the end of struggle. But in Nigeria and in much of Africa, success without marriage for a woman is often seen as unfinished business. No matter how many milestones you hit, no matter how many lives you change, the question always comes back in one form or another. When will you marry? It's not always shouted, sometimes it's whispered through the walls of family gatherings or tucked inside the mother's worried eyes. In Evan's case, the pressure wasn't from strangers, it was from the people who loved her the most. In several of her social media videos, Evan would feature her mother, a woman proud of her daughter's success, but quietly anxious about her marital status. You would sense it in her tone, the way she would tease, "Evan, go and find a husband though." It sounded playful, but beneath the laughter was a mother's longing, the old Nigerian belief that a woman, no matter how wealthy, is incomplete without a man by her side. And for Evan, that belief echoed louder the more successful she became. On Facebook, where she had built her empire, the comments were often cruel. Under her videos celebrating her wins or promoting her movies, you'd see people write things like, "Go and marry," or "You're getting too old, who will take you like this?" In a society that measures a woman's worth by her marital status, success without a husband can feel like failure wrapped in applause. And for Evan, who had fought her way from roasting plantain by the roadside to producing her own films, that kind of judgment cut deep, even if she didn't show it. At first, she brushed it off. She would laugh it away on camera, telling her mother not to disturb her. She would tell her fans she didn't care whether she was married or not, that she was happy being single. But the truth is, pressure like that doesn't just disappear. It seeps in slowly, through the silence after scrolling through hurtful comments, through the loneliness after shooting ends, through the question that lingers in the night. And whether she admitted it or not, it began to build something inside her, a quiet longing to prove that she too could be chosen. It's the kind of longing that can blur judgment, even from the strongest women, the kind that turns self-assurance into silent doubt and doubt into desperation. And just when it seemed like everyone, including Evan herself, had stopped caring about marriage, someone walked into the picture, a man who seemed to have all the answers. Every story has that one chapter that changes everything, the point where confidence meets vulnerability and longing disguises itself as love. For Evan Okoro, that turning point came not on a movie set or at a glamorous event, but in the comment section of one of her Facebook posts. It started innocently, a random comment from a man named Chibuzo Erikife, who boldly wrote, "Come, let me marry you. I'll take care of you." On any other day, such a comment might have gone unnoticed, swallowed in the midst of thousands of comments. But this time, it didn't. It stood out. Maybe it was the timing, or maybe it was that sentence and what it represented, the very thing Evan had been pressured about for years: marriage. But what came next was what truly surprised everyone. Evan replied, "DM me if you have all the qualities." It was short, but it spoke volumes. Not the kind of playful banter fans were used to seeing from her, but something else, something that hinted at quiet hope. It wasn't just a response, it was an opening. Now, there's nothing inherently wrong with meeting someone online. Many relationships have started that way, but this one seemed too fast, too bold, too sudden. For a man to come under a public post where thousands could see and declare his intent to marry a popular actress was already very unusual, and for Evan to respond publicly instead of brushing it off or keeping it private made it even more intriguing. It wasn't disrespectful, but it was very strange, almost impulsive. It revealed something beneath her usual confident exterior, a glimpse of the woman behind the fame, tired of waiting, tired of proving herself, maybe just ready to be chosen. And perhaps Chibuzo Erikife could sense that. Maybe he saw not just the successful actress, but the woman who had carried her mother, raised a daughter, built her brand, and still went to bed with a space beside her. Maybe he could sense that loneliness, that desperation she might not even have realized she was showing. From that one comment, things moved with the speed of light. Their connection grew almost overnight. Pictures started to surface, smiles, matching outfits, affectionate videos, the kind of whirlwind romance that looks like a fairy tale from the outside but moves too quickly to build real roots. Within weeks, not months, there were talks of marriage. Engagement posts appeared. Evan's page, once filled with movie updates and motivational captions, suddenly turned into a diary, and people were shocked. Fans who had followed her for years were caught completely off guard. When did this even start? They asked. Many thought it was a skit, another one of her content experiments. Others assumed it was promotion for a new movie, but it wasn't. Evan was very serious. In her mind, this was finally it, the answer to all her prayers, the silence to the mockery, the proof that she too could be loved and chosen. But what she didn't know was that this moment, this whirlwind romance that felt like a blessing, was only the beginning of another storm. At first, everyone thought it was a fairy tale. The smiles, the matching outfit, the forever man captions, it all looked like a happy ending in motion. But not everyone was convinced. Shortly after Evan introduced Chibuzo Erikife to the public, comments started pouring in. Not the usual congratulations or you both look good together, but warnings, real warnings. People who knew him, people from his community, began to speak up. They claimed this man had a past that wasn't exactly hidden, a past that whispered danger. The first and loudest accusation was that he had been married before and that the marriage ended because of domestic violence. The story, according to several people online, was that his first wife left him after enduring physical and emotional abuse. When this came up, many expected Evan to pause, to ask questions, to investigate further. But instead, she did what many women raised under the shadow of patriarchy have been conditioned to do. She defended him. She posted a video saying, "A man doesn't just beat a woman. Women should learn how to respect their husbands and talk to them calmly." That was the moment everything changed. Because in that single statement, you could see it, the pick-me syndrome, in its full display and regalia. A woman who had once been outspoken, confident, independent, the same woman who had built an empire from scratch, was now echoing the very words that had kept countless women silent in toxic relationships. This is what the pick-me mindset looks like. It's when a woman, in the quest to be loved, starts aligning herself with ideas that oppresses her, believing that endurance is virtue and that silence is strength. She didn't see that her words were not just defending her fears, they were also defending her need to be chosen. And so, the red flags kept flying. Not long after, more people came forward with disturbing information. Some said Chibuzo had just been released from prison barely a month before meeting Evan Okoro. Others claimed he and his family were notorious in their community for selling communal land and pocketing the money for themselves, a crime that had brought them disgrace. According to several sources, Chibuzo Erikife's father, the same man Evan now proudly called father-in-law, had allegedly been buried alive in the traditional sense, a symbolic Igbo curse Igbo elders use when someone has committed an abomination against the land. These were not minor rumors. They should not have been taken lightly. They were the kind of stories that should make any woman slow down, breathe, and think. But Evan didn't. She called them haters. She said people were jealous of her happiness. She argued that everyone had a past and that no one should be judged for their mistakes. It was love, yes, but love mixed with denial. And denial has a strange way of turning intelligence into blindness. What was worse, she began to romanticize submission and suffering, saying women should learn how to talk to their husbands and endure because no man is perfect. It wasn't just sad, it was painful to watch, because this was a woman who had once stood as a symbol of female resilience, now shrinking herself to fit into an image of the good wife. This is the dark irony of the pick me syndrome. It makes strong women believe that endurance is love. It makes independent women see submission as a proof of worth. It makes successful women forget that they too deserve peace. And while her fans were busy warning her, Evan was busy proving that she had finally been chosen. Every time she defended him, she wasn't just protecting a man, she was protecting her own decision to stay. Because sometimes the scariest kind of blindness isn't the one caused by ignorance. It's the one caused by wanting something so badly that you chose not to see the truth. For a while, it looked like the world had forgiven its doubts. After the storm of warnings and accusations, something strange happened. People began to cheer them. The comment section that was once full of worry slowly shifted to congratulation. Maybe he changed, readers thought. Maybe she found the one. The couple kept posting affectionate clips, cozy videos, little love notes, and the mood online softened. Followers started writing stories about resilience and second chances. For a brief moment, it felt like the doubt had been washed away. People became genuinely happy for her. But if you watched closely, you could see the small weirdness piling up under the surface. Evan didn't move into his house. She stayed in hers. Their together footage was often filmed in hotels. Not once or twice. It was a pattern. For a married woman, staying in your own house while always meeting your husband in hotels is unusual. And in a country where marriage is a public domestic arrangement, that detail raised eyebrow. People told her to stop posting every private moment online, that too much visibility can hide dysfunction rather than prove joy. But she didn't stop. She kept posting, and the feeds kept piling with staged sweetness. The same smiles, the same lighting, the same hotel room backgrounds. To many, it looked less like the intimate life of two building a home, and more like a soap opera being produced for likes and attention. If only Evan had maintained her cool, gone inside her home and continued with her marriage, maybe the public wouldn't have noticed all these details. But she refused to listen. Then, overnight, everything changed. Evan posted a video that shocked everyone. No preface, no slow fading. She went straight to the camera and said it plainly. She and Chibuzo Erikife were over. This was barely 3 months after the wedding. She said her life had been threatened, that he had told her explicitly that if she left, he would find her and deal with her. She said she felt unsafe. She said she had filed a petition with the police. She warned fans that if anything happened to her or her family, people should know who made the threats. The story she told was raw and frightening. She claimed the man had repeatedly pressured her for money, wanted a share of her influencer income, and lived off what she brought to the table. She who had built everything from nothing could not be the one expected to bankroll a grown man's lifestyle. That didn't sit right with her. She said she felt used. It was also the moment when many began to see the marriage in a new light, not as a love story, but as a transaction. If he had entered her life with loud public declarations and nightly hotel footage, what if his true motive was visibility and access? What if it was less about love and more about being seen with Evan Okoro, the platform, the followers, the convenience of being attached to someone with reach? We must be careful to note what Evan said and what others assumed. She alleged threats and financial exploitation. He, for his part, went public, insisting they were still together, calling her his wife, denying the breakup, clinging to a narrative of unity. That back and forth only made things messier in public. While Evan was saying she feared for her life, he was insisting on the status quo, as though the public claim could override the private fracture. Now let's look at the pattern and what it suggests psychologically. The hotel pattern, staying mostly in hotels while being married, points to performative intimacy. Hotels offer stage-ready footage, good lighting, neat backgrounds, and a narrative of romance that plays well on camera. But a real marriage builds daily life in domestic routines, bills, chores, neighbors, family obligations. The absence of that domestic blending in their posts suggested the relationship may have been curated for public consumption, not private consolidation. For the fact that after the breakup and everything, him, the Chibuzo Erikife, started posting Pictures of his house, his supposed mansion, showed that he had a home. He had a house. In fact, he had a supposed mansion. But the fact that he didn't bring Evans over, or that they didn't build a family life within his house, I don't know what to make of that. But let's move on. Evans claimed that she was funding his lifestyle, flips the unexpected gender script, and it still tells us something about motive. When a partner enters a relationship quickly after a short period and then insists on access to funds, it raises the possibility that attraction was tangled with opportunism. For Evan, who had worked hard to put food on that table since she was 16, that was an unbearable indignity. 3. The social media hunger. Chibuzo Erikife's constant presence on her page, and she tagging his page, go follow my husband. The public displays and the insistence after the split that everything was fine points to someone who prized visibility. For all I know, in every one of his videos with Evan, this guy was struggling to be seen. It was so obvious that he wanted to be seen. If he had sensed a fast path to relevance by attaching himself to a known creator, the relationship gave him immediate platform, followers, and a commute into the influencer economy. That's how some people win relevance today, not by building it, but by parasiting existing platforms. Fourthly, threats and control. Control doesn't always show in closed doors. It shows in how one partner can try to keep the other's voice down. But come to think of it, Evans was warned. This guy's behavior was, very notorious according to people who knew him. And online, he already behaved like, I don't know how to put it across without sounding disrespectful, but his behavior was more like those of maybe like all the street people. Very, it showed this violence, even though it wasn't really in the surface, but beneath what they were displaying, you could see someone who had this tendency of being violent. Maybe it was his face or the way he behaved, I don't know, but it certainly showed. Now, he wanted to keep Evans' voice down, but Evans, being the strong head that she was, she came out and she spoke. He wanted to bend the narrative, but she came out and she clarified things. That Evan posted a warning meant she was choosing preemptive visibility as protection. I'm telling you now, so if I disappear, you know why. And I'm sure that was kind of the best move she could have done at that time. In the end, what explained the crash of this marriage in record time might not be any single action. Under 90 days, the facade cracked and the fragile architecture of the union collapsed. For viewers, there is a painful lesson here. A relationship built too fast, too publicly, and without the basic glue of shared domestic life can be fragile. And when the stakes include money and reputation, heartbreak can become dangerous. From she's glowing, their love is perfect, to he deceived me in under 3 months. It was fast, brutal, and it left 2 questions hanging for people watching. Who was really being loved and who was being used? After the breakup, Evan entered a phase that can best be described as an emotional roller coaster. Her Facebook suddenly became flooded with heartbreak posts, videos of her crying, emotional captions, songs about betrayal, and lessons learned. She looked broken, confused, and hot. At first, her ex-husband stayed silent, only releasing a brief statement insisting that they were still together, that Evan Okoro is still my wife. But then came the twist that left everyone stunned. Evans publicly declared that she was never truly married. She revealed that her bride price was never paid. That on her traditional wedding day, the man's family somehow forget to pay her bride price. In Igbo culture, that is unthinkable. The payment of bride price is what seals a marriage. Without it, the entire ceremony is just an elaborate social visit. People online immediately latched onto that. They mocked her, saying she had been cohabiting, not married. Some said it was karma, that she had ignored all the warnings. Others said she should just go silent, heal privately, and let it blow over. But Evans didn't. She kept talking, posting, explaining herself, trying to make the world understand her own version of events. And the truth is, the world does not care. But Evans didn't understand that. Then she contradicted herself. She came back to later say the family didn't forget to pay, but that her father refused to collect the bride price. This came after a lot of backlash. And people were mocking her. Oh, how can they forget to pay your bride price? It meant you didn't matter. Then she came again because she needed to, I don't know what kind of public validation she needed, but she came up to say that it was her father who refused to collect the bride price. According to her, he told her to go live with her husband for 6 months first, just to see if the marriage would turn out peaceful and happy, and then afterwards he would accept the bride price. Is that not ridiculous? That for me sounds very ridiculous. He didn't want to collect it, only to see his daughter return home soon afterwards, broken and divorced. Great. But the contradiction was glaring. 1 minute it was, they forgot. The next it was, my father refused. To many, it sounded like she was scrambling to control the narrative. At this point, the backlash grew worse. Social media turned on her. What started as sympathy became mockery, but Evans kept posting, perhaps unable to let go of the need to explain. Her pain was public, and so was her confusion. At this point, I want to quickly note that maybe the reason she felt the need to constantly explain was because when you go through the comment section, there was a lot of mockery. People were mocking her, people were mocking her pain and all that. Even though on one hand, she kind of deserved what she got because she refused to listen, I do not think mocking her was right. That put a lot of pressure on her, and most of the time it was women like herself that were mocking her, and it wasn't great. It put a lot of pressure on Evans to continue explaining just so the mockery and the pain could stop. But then again, in the midst of all this came another twist. After online pressure and trolling intensified against the man, Evans suddenly made another emotional U-turn. She pleaded with her followers to stop attacking him. She said, in quotes, that he was a good man and that their relationship just didn't work. According to her, his family had reached out, begging her to return, but she had chosen not to because they simply weren't compatible. It was a shocking turn. Just weeks earlier, she had accused him of deceit and financial manipulation. Now, she was defending him again, the man she had called a threat to her life. Psychologically, this was telling. That kind of flip from love to hate, then back to empathy, often reflects emotional dependency. It's the mind's way of trying to seek closure from the very person who caused the pain. Sometimes it's not even about love anymore. It's about needing control, needing to rewrite the story so it doesn't feel like total defeat. But just as people began to think that she had found peace, the man subtly reignited the feud. He celebrated a popular content creator, Ken Palace of Justice, who had been publicly mocking Evans over her failed marriage. To many, it looked like a calculated dig, a way to humiliate her without saying her name. And that was the breaking point. Evans returned online again, this time in tears. She accused him of being heartless, saying he shouldn't provoke her to speak because if she did, the world would get to know the truth about what happened in those 3 months. She said he used her for fame, that he came into her life just to grow his social media following and build a name for himself. And once he got that, he started treating her badly so she would run away, and that's exactly what happened. It was, in essential, another 360 degree. From angry victim to forgiving wife, back to angry victim again. The emotional instability was visible. Her posts became erratic, switching between peace and chaos, calmness and rage. At this stage, Evans wasn't just fighting her ex-husband anymore. She was fighting her image, her reputation, her sanity, and the public's perception of her. At the end of it all, Evan Okoro's story stopped being just about a woman and her failed marriage. It became a mirror, a reflection of something deeper, something painfully familiar in our society. Because the truth is, Evan's story is not unique. It's the story of many women raised to believe that their value begins and ends with marriage. From a young age, women are told that no matter how successful or independent they become, they must complete themselves by becoming someone's wife. And so the chase for love, or more accurately, the chase for validation begins. For many, it's not really about the man. It's about the status that comes with being chosen. It's not the man really, it's that marriage. It's about silencing that societal whisper that says, you're doing well, but you're still single. That's how women end up enduring, defending, and even romanticizing pain, because walking away often feels like failure. Evan's story exposed this in real time. You are shamed for not being married and shamed again when the marriage fails. This is where the pick-me culture finds its power. It thrives in societies where women are taught that love must be earned through silence, submission, and endurance. It's a culture that conditions women to fight for male validation, even when that validation hurts them. Sometimes women like Evan aren't simply pick-me's. They are victims of societal programming. They are victims of a system that glorifies marriage but doesn't teach emotional intelligence, that praises endurance but ignores red flags, that celebrates misses but never talks about peace, safety, or self-worth. This is how a lot of women end up dying in marriage. I do celebrate Evan's strength to actually even live. Evan's public unraveling was messy, emotional and confusing, but in that chaos, she unknowingly held up a mirror to society. We saw how quick people were to judge, how fast empathy turns into entertainment, and how easy it is to laugh at someone's pain when it's happening online. In the end, Evan's story is not just an example for young ladies, it's a reflection of how deeply social conditioning can shape the choices people make, how validation can feel like love, and how pain can be dressed up as being strong. A reminder that healing doesn't come from defending the wrong things or proving the world wrong. It comes from unlearning everything that taught you to confuse suffering with love. And maybe that's the lesson. Beyond Evan Okoro, that true peace begins the moment you stop trying to be chosen and start choosing yourself.